Welcome to 2026. I want to start this episode by saying something honestly. I almost didn't record it. Not because I don't believe in this work. You know that's not true. But because believing doesn't mean resistance disappears. To be honest with you, I just got back from a week in Mexico with my two daughters, and it was beautiful and real, and it was also imperfect. They're teenagers. They had their own ideas. They had their mood swings. They had their own resistance. And what stood out to me wasn't the vacation. It was the reminder that letting go of control is the work at this stage of life. And that's true in parenting. It's also true in leadership, in our relationships, in business, and in our bodies. So this first episode of Exposed Living in 2026 is for the ones who look successful, but potentially there's an area in your life where it feels unfinished. Gen X, here's the reality. Chances are, if you're like me and many other Gen Xers, you are carrying a lot. Aging parents who need more from you. Teens or young adult kids who don't need you the same way. A career or business that looks good, but maybe at times feels heavy. You wonder where it's going. We have bodies that are changing. Relationship history that's taught you how to survive, but not always how to trust. So we cope the way that we were taught. We push. We numb. We distract. We normalize dissatisfaction and we call it adulthood. We tell ourselves, this is as good as it gets. It's better than most. Why would I be complaining? And it is as good as it gets unless you're willing to disrupt. You see, vision isn't a word. It's a decision. And here's something I learned 5 years ago that changed everything for me in my life. My paths crossed with Bob Proctor, who was my first true mentor, and he asked me a simple question. What do you want? And to be honest with you, I couldn't answer it. I really struggled with it. When I started thinking about it, I'd done what I was told. I climbed the ladder, I created security, built the pension, checked all the boxes, and at 45, I had what we were told to want, and yet something within me didn't feel totally fulfilled. What I realized later was this. I had stopped setting goals that were bigger than what I knew how to achieve. If I couldn't see the how, if it didn't feel realistic to me, I dismissed it. I almost thought it was for somebody else, but not for me. And in doing that, I lost my muscle of imagination. I stopped trusting my intuition. And truth be told, I even forgot who my authentic self was. And many of you may also be right there. Honestly, I remember being told, just be your authentic self. And I thought to myself, who is she? I felt like I was a person at work. I felt like I was a different person for my kids, for my parents, for my friends. I felt sometimes that I didn't even know who I truly was anymore. And it's not that I didn't love myself. Yes, I did. But I didn't feel totally whole all the time. And truthfully, when it got that way, I would start to numb. I would start to distract myself with things that, gave me those dopamine hits, those kind of instant gratification. But I would find myself on this hamster wheel of feeling back and around. Now, for me, I had fitness. Fitness was the one place I still felt like me. I always identified as an athlete. Even when I smoked, I would lie about it. Because in my head, I wasn't a smoker. I was an athlete. And if you're an athlete, you don't smoke. The truth was I did. In fact, I go on dates, because by this time I've been separated now for about 5 years, and I was dating, but I was fairly content with the relationship that my girls and I had. We call ourselves the Three Musketeers, and I was afraid of anything really disrupting that. Because again, I didn't allow myself to dream that something could be bigger and or bolder and or brighter than what I knew. And the relationships that I had hadn't always gone the way that I wanted. But when it came to fitness and working out, that was my medicine. Movement has always been my medicine. So has music. I love it. But even when it came to fitness, dreaming beyond half marathon, 10K, racing it faster wasn't something necessarily that I did. So training for a half Ironman, that didn't seem realistic. Not because I didn't feel like I couldn't do it, but because I couldn't see the plan. And that's when it clicked. As long as we only allow what we can logically explain, we will never create something different. The reason it feels logical or realistic to us is because it's in alignment with our current beliefs. I didn't have that awareness. I didn't know that. So I remember when I would go somewhere and I get this idea of like, yeah, I should do this or I should try this. Instantly, all of the reasons why I couldn't would come into play. And I would listen to them more than the want that I had within myself. This is when we start to not trust ourselves, or again, to think that we can't do more than what it is that we have. And what I've come to realize is this is why January and years repeats itself for so many people. So many of us want change. We say this new year is going to be different. Then we don't disrupt it. We continue to do the same thing, hoping and wishing for something, and then questioning why it doesn't work. And then we fall more trapped into, see, this is as good as it gets. Then we try to reach for strategy, but strategy isn't the problem. I always say, if it was just about strategy, you can figure out the strategy for almost anything. If it was just about strategy alone, let's be honest, we'd all be millionaires. We'd have the perfect bodies. We'd have deeply connected relationships. But it's not just a strategy. It's not what we know. We act in alignment of who we are, because strategy doesn't override belief. Identity does. Truth be told, in these last 5 years, I've invested over $200,000 in my growth. I've studied neuroscience. I've studied mindset, the universal laws. I've risked bankruptcy. I've left a secure corporate career. I went all in. And even now, resistance still shows up. Awareness doesn't eliminate fear. It teaches us how to move forward with it. I don't know if you've ever heard that quote, but it says the secret or the thing that you want the most is in that cave that you're most resistant to go into. So many of us have a harder time falling more in love with the vision of our future than the memories of the past. We know the past. And sometimes, especially when we get into our 40s and our 50s, we try things, these experiences, and maybe they haven't worked. And so then we start to limit ourselves from our past. But our past only determines our future when we let it. But we have to start to disrupt this and bring awareness. Nobody taught us this in school. When I start to reflect back, the reason why I was able to secure a corporate job, the reason why I climbed the corporate ladder, the reason why I had the pension, because I believed I could have that. And when I think back to it, when I adopted that belief, I didn't know the how. I didn't know who I'd be working for, but I believed I would. I remember dreaming I want to have a life that my parents gave me and a little bit more. And that's when I woke up, and guess what? I was living that dream. So the only thing that changed is that I didn't dream bigger. And then we almost get to these excuses. Well, when I was in my 20s or whatever, I could risk that, but now I can't risk that. And that's just a belief that doesn't serve us as Gen X anymore. Or maybe it does, but then you can't want and wish and hope for more with having that. Because really the only limit that we have to creating more are the ones that we decide and we choose to accept. This is why I feel it was important to record this episode, because so many of us start New Year with thinking new things. 2026 is going to be different. It's the year of the horse. Like, all I had to do was shed all the bullshit from the year of the snake in 2025, and here I'm running. Well, guess what, my friends? If you don't shed the beliefs that got you to here and adopt a new set with a clear vision of what it is that you want and intentionally start to choose that new, which sometimes is, and not sometimes, is always leaning into that resistance and challenge yourself for more, then 2026 is going to look the same as 2025. And I bet you 2025 looks the same as 2024. So many people live the same year 10 years in a row. Don't let that be you. This is why I believe you don't want it to be you. Why you tune in to Exposed Living, because we said we're going to hit with the truth. And I want to tell you what happens with that is around knowing more about the universal laws, trusting more, believing more, and having faith. You know, it's not faith when you can see evidence of it. Faith is believing in it without the proof. Here's the truth for me. I believe in the universal laws. I believe in the law of compensation. Law of compensation states that you will earn proportionally into the impact that you create. So the bigger the impact that you have, the more you will earn. And that's in any area of your life, whether it's financial, relationships, health. But that only works when your identity can hold that level of impact. Gen X, we were taught that control equals safety, that knowing the plan equals security. But here's what I've come to learn and what I teach. It's what I live by now, is the plan reveals itself after you commit to the vision, not before. You know, have you ever noticed sometimes that you'll start to worry or think about something and then it stops you from doing more? And our energy goes where our focus is. Another universal law is one that states that for every good, there's a bad. For every left, that there's a right. For every up, there's a down. The law of polarity. And so when we focus on what could go wrong, we will find it. Whatever you look for, you will find. And that's also true for the good. I believe that us as Gen X, we were taught to be safe, that, you know, playing it safe was a better risk to take. Then we start to limit ourselves and we start to find evidence of that. Now, if you grew up in a family that took big risks, chances are you take big risks because you've seen that through that risk, you can win big too. You can create a bigger impact. And this is why it's so important when we have a vision to follow it through. People without vision are lost. You honestly start to play life not to lose, right? We're protecting what we have because we worked so hard to get that. So we're afraid that if we don't guard it, that we can lose it. Yet if we created it, we can find it again. This is why people win a lottery and lose all the money, because they never adopted their identity to equal that of somebody with wealth. Why is also true why some people can lose $1 million and find it again, because their identity sets the limit to what will create. So when you're setting your vision and your goals for 2026, you got to be looking inside to say, well, what does my identity believe? Our identity is foundational, and there is behind the identity, like, drives our beliefs and our stories. Our stories that we tell ourselves determine our identity. Our identity determines our actions that get us our results. It's also what we attract in. We can't attract something that we don't believe we are or that we're worthy of it. And I know if you're listening to this, you're a successful Gen X. You have done great things. And so we've also learned, though, that a lot of those times it's like forcing it and pushing it. And it took a long time to do it. Well, it took a long time to do it because we weren't working in harmony with the laws. Then you said, but Stacey, I've tried it before. I tell you what, you're a different person today than you were before. And a lot of times we just have to continue to try it with persistence. And recognizing that when we were learning how to walk, we fell down, but we got back up and we tried it again. He has a vision of a kid to walk. And we didn't allow our failures to determine our worth. We just knew we wanted to walk or whatever it is for you, right? That's why you see as kids that we have so much playtime because we don't take ourselves so seriously. But over the years, that starts to build up. And then we start saying, well, if it's not logical, if it doesn't make sense, if I don't have the plan, then that's not for me, or won't work for me. I got to tell you, if you think that way, that's why you are not feeling all the joy, the pleasure, and the happiness that's available for you. So what is the vision you want? Truth is, vision isn't a word. It's a decision. And a decision means death of anything else. And is something you honor, even when it's uncomfortable. You can't say I made a decision and then when it gets hard, retract. 70% in is still 100% out. So we got to pick our heart. So we're reevaluating. Our life can be challenging. Rewriting our identity can also be challenging. But so is living a life half alive, half expressed, half connected, half honesty. So what is the challenge? What is the hard that you want to pick? Because according to the law of vibration, everything moves. Nothing stays the same. We're either moving forward or slowly moving backwards. Comfort doesn't preserve your life. I'm being totally honest, as I will, because we're going to get freaking exposed and take it even more higher this year. Comfort erodes your ability to achieve more quietly. But when we become aware of this, we can disrupt it and we can create a better view. And this is what disrupt is really about. It's not about blowing up our lives. It's not burning everything down. It's about building a better view. A view where you see yourself differently. A view where you lead yourself differently. A view where you reconnect to your mind, your body, and your soul. And we stop living from outdated beliefs. Some of the beliefs have served us in the past. But just because they've served us in the past doesn't mean they're going to take us to that next level. And something important that I've learned is that just because I've had a belief in the past doesn't mean that it's true forever. And here's the thing, when our view changes, our choices change. And when our choices change, our life follows. I know you want different in 2026. I know you want to be that horse and go, but we've got to disrupt and create a new view. This is why I'm hosting a vision workshop on January 13th, and I want you to join us. It's not set goals, but to reactivate your imagination, to help you see what your current thinking may not be able to see right now. And it's why Disrupt, my 8-week transformation coaching program, is starting on January 21st, exists. It's for Gen X leaders who are done repeating the same year. And you're ready to lead your life with intention, trust, and courage. You don't need a new life. You need a new view. And that starts with the courage to reevaluate again and again, to review, to revisit, to reset, to reignite, to reinvigorate until your life becomes what you become. Here's the thing. If we're not going to disrupt, our January 2026 is going to be the same as 2025. I know you don't want that, and I don't want that for you. So I hope you'll join us in the Vision Workshop. Message me on Instagram, on Facebook. Reach out at Stacey@exposedliving.com. That's expose with an X for us Gen Xers. And say reclaim. Because that's what it is. It's about reclaiming the life that you know you were born to live. The one inside of you. I know you have that fire. Let's put a little gasoline on it. Let's reignite that. But if you have that flicker within, it's there. It's about you believing more in you. And I was really challenged with, should it be a better view, a better you? It's both of them. Because when you change your perception, as the infamous Wayne Dyer would say, you change your life. It's with parenting with the girls. It's something I've really had to work on, is changing my perception of how I think they should act. I never thought I was a controlling person. I have to realize there are areas in my life where I want to control them. And when I control them, I limit myself to new potential, to the possibilities. I want to try and stop my kids from making mistakes. And yet we all know the greatest lessons we learn were from making mistakes. So I need to change my view on that, bring awareness into what even was causing some, friction between us. And there'll be times where one of my daughters may say to me, Mom, I know what I'm doing. And I think to myself, you know what you know from where you're at. But I know more because I've seen more. But that doesn't mean she's wrong. She's still trusting her intuition. And I don't want her to stop that. And I don't want her to stop challenging her imagination. And I got to change then how I perceive some of those situations and allow her to fall down to win. And my job in there is to find the coherence, that alignment, so I don't come in panicking with it. Because if I'm in a panic, I'm going to give out that energy, she will give it back to me. Now, that's just an example in parenting, but I'm sure you can find that in relationships at your work. Maybe you're divorced like me, and you find yourself in this cycle of being the same person, just in a different body. Well, until you change your view on you, guess who you'll continue to attract? Maybe your health has slipped in some ways. Like I said at the beginning of the episode, that your body's changing. Well, if you believe the only reason your body's changing, or why you may be, gaining weight or finding it harder to release weight or to get in shape, is because you've allowed yourself to believe that. And what we believe is what will happen. That's where the evidence comes. So what happens if we start to believe a bigger view for you? You have nothing to lose except for the opportunity to create more in 2026. If you want to ride that horse, the year of the horse, I see us all loving these posts that are so heartwarming, but are you just reading it and hoping and wishing for something new? Or are you actually going to internalize it, reevaluate, revisit some of those beliefs to determine which ones are in alignment with what it is that you truly want? This is why this vision workshop is different than many goal setting workshops you've probably been in. Goal setting is an intellectual activity. When we achieve goal achieving, and we start looking at vision and visualizing ourselves with our goal achieved, it becomes more than an intellectual activity. It becomes our soul finding that excitement and being reinvigorated and reignited. So let 2026 be the year that you reclaim, that you reevaluate, you reinvent, you reignite, and we reinvigorate together. I hope you all had beautiful holidays. I wish you nothing but the best in 2026 and more. But let's make it more than a wish and a hope. Let's make it a belief and a knowing, acting with certainty that it will be our best year yet. And that we haven't even seen what it is that we can create. But tell you what, come to the vision workshop and start to see it in your mind's eye. It's the workshop of your imagination. And what we see in our mind, we can create in our reality. Everything we see in our reality can create it twice. Once in the vision of someone's mind, and then through persistence, through trial and error, through dedication, through committed, by making a decision, it is created. I love this one quote that Picasso said. Someone asked him one time, how do you create such beautiful paintings? He says, I dream my paintings and then I paint my dreams. What is it that you dream for you? And are you ready to pick up the paintbrush and paint it? I hope to see you January 13th in Vision Workshop. Don't worry if you miss it, it will be recorded. But reach out to me and let's get ready to make 2026, Q1 of 2026, the best one yet by disrupting. Until next time, my friends, stay bold, live big.
That's it for today's episode of Exposed Living, Be Ageless. But this is just the beginning. If this episode made you feel something, share it. Tag me. Send it to a friend. Let's start the conversation we can be having all along. No shame, no guilt. Unfiltered, raw, real, exposed. And if you're ready to go deeper, join us inside the Exposed Living Facebook community, where we take this work off the podcast and into real life. Know this, your change starts when your excuses die. Because this life, this one wild, ageless, unforgettable life is waiting on you. This is your time. This is your truth. This is Exposed Living.